Welcome to Meet Me in the City, a podcast exploring music through the boroughs of America. I'm joined, as always, by my two good friends, Sean and Dan. Gentlemen, how are we doing today?
Doing really good, as Sean likes to say.
No, you
stole that. I'm doing okay.
Okay.
Man,
We're
that's
excited.
No,
right.
I'm doing real good.
We're excited. We are in Dayton, Ohio, as we speak, and our guest today is going to give us some backstory and history on his time. Sean, will you introduce your friend?
So on the podcast today, we have Andy Valeri, and you may know him from many ventures, but the big overarching is Big Beef Productions, which under that is many different.
The big beef overarching.
That's right.
The
The overarch. Did you like that, Andy?
Yeah, I did. That was,
Okay. And one in particular that was a part of, a small part of, not my band was a part of it, was Big Beef Records, which I know we're going to talk about for sure today because I think it's a cool label. You had cool bands. You did a lot of cool things. And if you go onto YouTube and just look up
It's
bands from
amazing.
that era, you'll see Andy's videos.
Oh, man.
Yeah,
and
those are awesome.
It's awesome. Cage. I mean, I could go through a list of all the bands that you've recorded, but they're all out there on YouTube. And that's a history in itself of going out and seeing these bands perform live in the heyday of the 90s. And so let's start with kind of at the beginning. Where did you grow up? When did you start was there music in your house? Did you start to figure out music on your own? When did those influences start to come into play?
yeah, well, it was great to be here. You guys do great
guys.
work. I love listening to all
thank
the
you so much.
cool stories of various friends and compatriots.
Yes.
And
Yes.
occasionally there's even people like, I've never heard of this guy. Oh, wow, this is amazing,
Yeah,
So it's
thank you.
great, yeah. But as for, I was born on an outpost of the empire, on a sack base out of the country. And, military family, like a lot of people got us to Dayton when I was like 5, and I was a little kid.
There's so many people that we've interviewed that are military.
Yeah, they end up, the family thing finds
Crazy.
its way here and then, just stayed. So I, in essence, grew up here. And, when it comes to the music thing, it's not like my parents liked music and they had a stereo, like the old
Big
cabinet,
console.
big console
big,
thing in
yeah.
the 60s. And for some reason, I just always gravitated to the records and I liked playing records. And my mom even talks about when I was like 2, or one of the first things that I did when I could start walking was she once heard music coming, like, did I leave the radio on or something, and like, where's the music coming from? Walked in and I just started learning to walk. I had pulled over something like a chair or something so I could climb up and get into the console and was putting records on and playing records.
Wow.
And she's like, how did he even know how to do this?
You were
like,
born to play records.
it was like, so, and I always did like that in my parents' record collection, and they had, they were not into like Bob Dylan or anything like that. But, they had some good things. They were big into Sinatra and Harry Belafonte records, and those things really appealed to me.
Yeah.
So that kind of stuff. And, and even that, that pop folk stuff, like the Kingston Trio or something like that. So, but it was that, but I always just loved records. We'd go visit my grandma and, I'd immediately go to her old record player and just want to play the records she had. And so,
That's cool.
just like music like that. And then, then
Very tactile, too. So I'm
very
sure.
much really into records,
Mm-hmm.
and into like the listening experience is something you're consciously doing.
Yeah.
I think that's something that obviously we didn't grow up with it, but in the 60s and the 70s, where you actually could go into a record shop and they had listening rooms. I think that would
they
be
did.
cool, these days. You really go in and, everyone has earbuds now and all that kind of stuff. But
Right.
But having an actual listening room to go into and put a record on, I think that'd be cool.
So music was always there, and then the Beatles were my alpha and omega when it came to, and that was around. My older sister had some records that I've kind of dabbled a little bit in. I kind of like some of the Elton John songs and stuff. She had that stuff.
What year was this roughly, like when you started getting into the Beatles? And
Well, that happened. I remember it was right after Christmas, 1976.
Wow.
And I was in 8th grade, and it was around. My sister had the Red and Blue album, and my middle name is Jude, and so like when I was a little kid, it was always on the radio, right?
Yeah.
It's a big hit when I was like 5 years old, and my mom was like, "There's your song, that's your song," So I grew up with that stuff, and for some reason, like I still have it. It's the first record that I ever remember like getting. I had the Batman theme, the Monkees record because I like the Monkees, and then I got it was at the base. We had just got here. It was 1967, and I liked the swirly label, right? And so I want that record because I liked the swirly, and it was Strawberry Fields Forever and Penny Lane.
Yeah.
So I used to listen to that as a little kid all the time without really ever and Strawberry Fields Forever scared me. It was kind of like, ugh, but it was intrigued me. I liked it, but it was like, but anyway, the Beatle thing, just one night was over Christmas break, and, I would play those records sometimes. And that was the night I met my sister's new boyfriend, who was her boyfriend in high school, and who plays a big part later in the whole creation of Big Beef Records, because then we started doing our own living room band, which became a band called Jeff and Andy, but now it's like Jaw. I mean, you guys like, Rasta,
Ja Rule.
Ja Rule, right? But at the time, we're just J and A. It's just, and
Hilarious.
and that's why we ended up inventing a record label, because we would make these albums. We would make records that were just tapes, but we're just making them in the living room with this no-name Japanese cutout guitar that only had 5 strings because the 6 was missing, and we
didn't care.
Didn't care,
I'm with you on
right?
that.
We
That's how
didn't
I
care.
play all the time.
Yeah.
Right, and just plug it in a Radio Shack mic, and we would make these records. And then I would put them together. I would design the labels and stuff like that. But they were all Apple records at the time, And finally, we were just like, oh, we're too big for this Apple thing.
Oh, okay.
We need our own label. This, Beatle business is in our way. It's stifling our creativity.
Yeah.
And so Big Beef Records is born from.
So how did you get that name? Big Beef.
It was just a bad teenage joke that I can't even remember. We were at Jed's, that restaurant that used to be around, Jed's Steakhouse restaurant. And they used to have all-you-could-eat chili. And I think how when you're teenagers, you're just, everything is funny because it's dumb and you don't. And I think they had like Big Beef Special or something. And we just thought it was the stupidest logo. And it was ridiculous. And we just somehow Big Beef Records, and as a joke, but we did it, and then it just became Big Beef Records. And
So when did Big Beef start? So it started way before.
that would have been 1978.
Wow.
Yeah. And
So when did you? So there was quite. Were you putting out? I know you were young then, right? You were in a band that's in your living room, right?
yeah,
Right.
I'll just start our own
Right.
recordings.
And then when did you?
Big
jump?
shout out to Jeff Harris if he's
Yes.
listening.
When did you jump from that to like getting distro?
Oh, well,
later?
that was like that.
10 years.
That's a million years later.
Oh yeah,
because,
that's what I thought.
Because Big Beef becomes. I mean, it starts as this record label, and we're putting out,
So were you like handing these out to your friends and stuff like
we
that?
would
or-
a handful of friends, when you could even afford to make, Sertron cassettes of these things, because they were all just on a reel-to-reel and dubbed to a cassette and, a couple things.
You were recording on a reel to reel?
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. My dad had this reel-to-reel recorder, and we were using that. Wow. And I was always learning how, if you push this button, it, doubles back on itself or it creates reverb or something. Really cheap, cheesy stuff. But we were, it's always about, what can you do with what you've got?
Yeah.
Always, what do we got? How do you make something happen with it? But the label quickly, was that, but it quickly became a moniker for anything and everything we were doing creatively. Right. And that, wasn't long before or after that when I was in a film class in 1979 with my friend Steve Bognar, and a couple other of my friends, and, we're juniors in high school. And Steve knew about Jaw and everything, the inner sanctum of friends I would inflict some of these recordings on them. And so we made these films, and we ended up, spending most of our youth, making everything we would do. My friend's poetry book of poetry. I'd have my dad Xerox it at work, and that was a Big Beef book.
Oh, wow.
But the Big Beef Productions became the moniker for all the film and video stuff we were doing at Carroll High School at the time. And we were in the AV club. So we had our hands on all the video equipment. So we're always just constantly doing stuff, including we would make productions out of the high school basketball games. The coach would have us go and video the team. This is on black and white, reel-to-reel recordings, but they wanted, film. Video for the team to watch.
Right.
And so Steve and I would do it, but then we plug a mic into it. We just start doing our own commentary and adding how can we make this entertaining?
Right.
And those would become the Big Beef joke would slide into that. But so everything became Big Beef Productions. And back to your question about the records, recordings, and then there was other living room bands that we would do it. But what happened in the 90s was it just reached a point where I was doing so much other stuff with bands that was I could just, put this kind of thing out too. And it started after with Cage and what they were doing. And, and Trader Vic was doing Simple Solutions and all that kind of stuff. And, this was growing as hey, a DIY thing can now take this. And I was well, why don't we just do this? Why can't I just do this? And, this turned Big Beef into an actual professional operation, which it did, tax-paying, registered business, and, all that stuff. It's
distro.
Everything. The distro, all of it. Yeah.
So were you how did you connect with these bands? Were you in the scene? Were you going to these shows? How did you, with Cage, how did you come to be and say, hey, come record on my label? Or
that started, I was doing all this other stuff all those other years. Mm-hmm. And the music, I was really, I lived in Pennsylvania for a few years when I was going to school at Penn State. That's where I met Sharon Gavlik, and that's how she got to Dayton.
Oh wow!
I came back here in the 80s, long before we. And so we had band stuff we would do there. That's where the Electric Ferret started and everything. But I was really into, a lot of film and then video stuff and other kinds of art at the time, which my friend Steve, back to that whole period, something he was just recently talking about, because Steve Bognar and I, we were our own sort of working dynamic for many years. Everything we did, we kind of did together through all our school years, basically until the 80s after I moved back, and he hooked up with Julia and all that stuff. We were kind of, what he said was that was our Hamburg, for us, and we were like this working band, even though we weren't. Music infused everything we were doing. And most of the films that I was making with Steve was all fundamentally around music, and we would use music and, there's some stories and everything, but music was very much it. And because we weren't really musicians, this was our band. right?
Yeah.
And at Hamburg, that was our Hamburg. It was like, just like there would be no Beatles without Hamburg.
Right, yeah.
That's very much the core. They would always say, that's it. That was the core of why we were. And that's kind of where we came from. But then, I went off more into getting into the community media, community TV,
Right.
doing a lot more with film and video. And, Big Beef was that. Music was always still part of it. The show I was doing in cable back in the 80s, the Eat More Carp show, music was very much a part of it. But when it came to the music scene, I had peripheral connections to it. There's some bands or whatever I would like, but I was busy making other stuff. Didn't get directly involved with them, with actually working with bands. It was right around the turn of the decade. It was like 1990. And Sharon had seen the Killjoys, who later became the Raging Mantras.
Right.
Met them, and they knew it's bottom line is, well, we got this new record coming out. It's cassette, at the time. Our first release. And we kind of want to make a big deal out of it, like have a big event, Canal Street Tavern or something. A little different order of a show.
A release show.
A release show. And they wanted something like, you do all this video stuff. Could you maybe, what would it take to have you come do video stuff live for this? And so it was like, I ended up meeting them and talking. It was like, that's where I first met Ed Lacey.
Oh, wow.
Who was my longtime compatriot, and Nick Kazernis, and Jim McPherson.
Yeah.
Right? But especially Ed, when he came for the working session to meet me and talk about, you do all this video stuff. They wanted to enlist me to do this stage thing. So it was crude, but we did it, and it became this thing, and I ended up, very much working very closely with that band until they broke up, and Rob spun off. That's when Jim joined the Breeders, and so Greg and Ed reformed into Cage. That's where that started. And my house was the practice spot for all this stuff. It was like the headquarters for the Killjoys and then Cage and stuff like that. And so it all just kind of grew out of that. And it went from, and we were doing live TV shows with them. And a lot of my involvement with the music scene during some of that was those kinds of things. And helping with, and I was recording stuff with the Killjoys, and then, but Cage was working with basically Simple Solutions, but watch it as that process, but I was still kind of like doing a lot of the work with Nick. And we're like, well, that's what, when we ended up like, we're doing all,
Right.
it's like, well,
handing it over to Simple Solutions.
Yeah, well, it's like, but God bless,
Yeah,
like,
they're doing it.
Yeah, the band was
it.
DIY.
Right.
Which is good. Fine, but it was like, well, if we're just doing this,
Yeah.
maybe,
Do it ourselves.
do it. Yeah, do it ourselves. So that's when it was like I committed to making it a full-on thing and turning it into a label. And I also had the good fortune at the time of, still have the good fortune, is one of my best friends, but who started Donut, which is now Data Yard. That was like the first ISP. And this is the mid-90s, emails just come on the scene, and there's this new thing called the web and all this stuff. And so he helped put together the Big Beef website.
Oh, wow.
Which has got the domain done, and, and he, in fact, he used that as the template. BigBeef.com was their first virtual domain ever at Donut Data Yard.
Oh, wow.
And it was like, as a test run, but then I got a website out of it.
No doubt.
Which a lot of places didn't have at that time. Right. Didn't have that kind of, so that put a little bit of presence to it. But that was the timing of how that worked, and then just went from there.
So You didn't put out Cages, though. That was Simple Solutions.
Yes, that was all
You
Simple
did
Solutions.
so
but
what
we
was
did a
your-
lot of work with them. And again, Cage for a while was in my house.
Right.
Right.
Until they moved over to Leo. But that's where I met and started working with Greg Spence too,
Yeah.
and all that. And I was very involved with things. Real Lulu was forming out of that. And they started playing with them, and we were doing TV shows with them, and other kinds of stuff.
Right.
So more and more, getting very, very active in the music scene through the Killjoys and through Cage, and it just kept developing,
Snowballing.
and bringing more bands in.
And on your show on Local Access, you had Haunting Soul. You had tons of bands on there.
Yeah, well,
Or was
different
that
times.
was a different?
Yeah.
That was a different show, actually. wasn't
Yeah,
it?
yeah. I'm just, but all the different whatever stuff I was doing. There was that Big Beef's Dayton Band Marathon thing
Yeah.
that went for like 8 hours on live TV.
Right.
That's amazing.
It's on YouTube. I mean, a lot of that stuff
segments
is on,
of it. Yeah, the
segments of it.
the performances and
Yeah.
things like that. With like Haunting Souls
Yes.
were Pure Plastic Tree, which I love them, and they were the first. That kind of sums up Big Beef's business acumen there. That like, I know, let's put together and produce a CD for a band that we know is going to break up and move. But it was like, that's also very indicative of what it was about.
Right.
It's like, I don't care about the business. The business is a tool. And right now we're going to use enough of the tools of business in order to make sure that we can actually make this thing happen and make it work and do it, because here's a band that deserves to have something. It doesn't have a document like this. And if we don't do it now, it's never going to get done.
Yeah.
So
That was your first release?
that was the first
official?
CD release.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I mean, again, we could different things and cassettes and whatever.
Did
But that
you
was the
do
first CD release, which
Okay.
was and that was 1995. And
Wow.
that's
That was
elevating the game.
95.
Once you start getting into 95, when you're making CDs, there was a whole infrastructure of cost and everything involved in that. So, but that was the first big step.
How did you get your distro for your? Do you remember how that came about? Who you approached, or?
I mean, yeah, and that was back with, what was that magazine? There was different kind of
Maximum Rock and Roll.
yeah, no, trade. Well, I mean, they did actually just did some distro through them, but no, there was like a couple of trade mags that Tim Taylor turned me on to, actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and it was like, hey, you should check these people out or contact these people, or here's a list of different ones, and I would do that. But couple main ones were just, well, one was me. This is back when you could do this,
Right.
and back before the Telecommunications Act was passed, and that's another thing for another conversation. But let's just say that is one of the most destructive things in American society and history, one of the worst pieces of legislation ever. And that had a notable, I saw the erosion quickly from starting to see the consolidation. You started to have radio stations and access through them beginning to quickly disappear, including, I mean, even look at something like Tony Peters' show that used to be on WTUE. That's axed. That's gone. And you started to lose these things, and then you started to see consolidation of business. The kinds of things I did in the 90s started by the 2000s was becoming more and more and more difficult. Distros would pick you up. It'd be easy to be like, oh, okay, well, who are you? And you get a rundown. Oh, okay, you sell a few records. There's a few, some interest. I'll take 10 of those. I'll take 20 of those, whatever, and blah, blah, blah. And I'll take 50 of those. I'll take 5 if they're good. I'll take another 50. All right, that, whatever. That started disappearing.
Oh.
And it'd be like minimum 500.
Wow.
Okay.
Oh, whoa.
And then minimum 1,000. And I'm like, nah.
I can't do that.
Can't do that.
Right.
Who's
That's a
printing
lot
that
of
many or pressing
money.
that many?
Well,
yeah.
right.
Front.
But that's what was happening.
Yeah.
That was
it-
clearly happening.
But it sounded like when you started, it was I wouldn't say the heyday, but it was like you could still do it. You could still get.
And we were doing it.
Pioneer out.
Yeah.
That was
And
awesome.
yeah. And you could make it. It was a lot of work, but you could do it, and you could sell to a distro in San Francisco 10 Real Lulu records.
Yeah.
I heard about that. Oh, I saw that. I'll have to take 10 of those. And they just pay upfront cash. And it was like, all right.
They would pay up front?
Sometimes they would do. But, but I had a huge help, and then early on was working with Pravda Records in Chicago. That was, if I had any distribution, because those other things, they happened, but, the one main one that was my friend Ken at Pravda, had met them early on with the new Duncan Imperials and started working with them early on in the video world, TV and promotion with the bands. But then as I got the Big B thing into a real business, he would open up all sorts of avenues for distribution and publishing.
Wow.
And getting things like, I got these TV shows, because that's what he was doing. And we co-published a lot of stuff. And in every record I would put out, he would always I'll look into whatever distribution avenue I can get, and blah, blah, blah.
That's awesome. How many bands total, like in the heyday of Big Beef, did you have, do you think?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
A dozen maybe, different ones.
Now was
Worked on, or if you're going to go back, even count Jaw,
there you go.
The greatest of them all.
There it is.
They were on Apple Records.
I would love to hear some of that. So, was it mostly bands approaching you, or did you approach bands?
It was all it was all organic.
From
It eventually became bands approaching me, more and more of that. But as the time when the strain was getting harder, and then it was just like, this isn't gonna
working for me.
Well, it was the thing. Not another side, but the Big Beef Records thing. That component, that whole wave of doing things, and putting out these releases and working with bands. Because again, I wasn't just. By the turn of the century, by 2000 and 2001, after Greg died, that realigned things. That was a major sort of shake that took realignment. But it was getting where the business was. It was really reaching a point of critical mass where it's like, if this is going to continue to go anywhere, I'm going to have to step up and, actually invest in, worker staff, like getting somebody to help, and paid staff to start doing things more like Pravda was doing as a real business. And it was becoming like, because that success or whatever was building, and more people, Crazy Joe was like, hey, I want to be on your record label because, love the Mulchman and all this stuff. And that would be great. It would be like, I'd like to do that, but do I have the time and the wherewithal? And frankly, what was also happening, this is when I was working with you.
That was going to be my
Sean,
next question.
And that's like, that year was the breaking point, because there was not only more and more actual, the business side of it was becoming bigger and bigger, and doing multiple projects that year. Couple big ones that year was, of course,
Lab Partners.
Lab
too,
Partners, right?
Yeah,
Same
year.
Yeah,
I remember that.
Which was a big release for me and for them and for all of us. And and they were great records, but there was this really darkening cloud happening over our society at the time that I knew was like, this isn't good. And have a lot of, history and like, political awareness and action and things like that. But then, it's kind of gone, set sort of, not aside, but, it was, but with the brewing, 2002 was a bad year, because that was like the Cheney Bush regime. It was clear these guys are looking to start global conflagration. They're going to invade a country. This is clearly, sorry about the line, just clearly bullshit. This is just this is criminal.
You're allowed to say bad words on this podcast.
right.
I don't know if you've listened to the Mitch Mitchell episode. But he broke the whole
rule.
thing open for us. And since then, it's no looking back.
Well, well, of course, that's Mitch, but,
Yeah, no doubt.
but,
So when
be
that-
dignified with your listeners, even though I'll throw that
No,
stuff
you're
around.
fine. You're
But it
fine.
was when he pulled the trigger, when they pulled the trigger on that war, when they launched that, I knew this is,
So pretty much, did you feel that, okay, this stuff needs to take a back seat because I need to do something?
absolutely.
Okay.
It was
That's-
a 100% conscious
Gotcha.
thing that was like,
Yeah.
I cannot consciously continue in good conscience put my focus on making pop and rock records when we have nascent fascism now openly on its way here. And so Ed Lacey and I, with the help of like people like Nick Kazernis and a whole host of people that I had worked with and other things, put together the Uncommon Sense TV media thing, which was interactive websites, which was a live television show, which we also then was working on circulating to other stations. And that became, in a way, the mirror of Big Beef. That was where for years, and what I was doing where I was working in community media, a lot of political activism, a lot of media policy was really going up for grabs then, and we were dealing with, that.
Yeah.
And so the music stuff really took a deep backseat on purpose.
Can I go back a second?
I
Because we have a
wanna
history.
go back too, but I'll follow up. You go.
Okay, because we have a history, obviously, of putting a record out together
Yeah.
and worked very closely
Yeah.
for, gosh,
Yeah,
6, 7, 8 months.
Yeah,
I mean,
during that year, right?
a lot of trips to New York together to record and stuff. What year was that?
That's 2002.
Okay, that was 2002.
It was 2001, post 9/11, but May 2002.
Okay.
So was that the last Morelos record?
Yes.
Yeah, Tiny Lights.
How did so I can't remember this, how did you and I get connected?
Well, that's you played a show at Canal Street. See, I might be mixing even years up.
Yeah, it's okay.
But there was a show you played with Real Lulu. It was long before that. That's when I first met you guys in person. They were just friendly acquaintances on the music thing.
Yeah.
That kind of goes, I guess this ties in, and I know we don't want to go over time here.
You're good. You're good. You're good.
We're all right.
Because
Yeah, we're good.
I do want to
Yes,
not
yes,
be
we'll
out
talk
of
about
time.
that.
But this goes back to like how you work with people, and you were asking. It's like it was organic. It's friends, and it just started with that. And these people, I was already working with them, and they were very good friends of mine. The Nick Kazernises and the Ed Lacey's of the world, and Greg Spence's and everything. And it was like that's. And I do what I can, and of course, then Sharon and Katie and the Real Lulu, and that was all this
Organic friendships.
Yes, friendships and the people you're living with and doing these things with, and you do it, and then it just it kind of
Expands.
out from there, and the different orbits of people that and you knew other people in the scene and everything, and everybody had. The thing about Dayton which was nice, is there were definitely, certain concentric orbits where things might be, a little tighter. But
Sure.
in
Guided
one,
by voices.
yeah, well, that would really,
That's really
that's really
you
tight.
you used to hang out.
Yeah, I did
with him.
a little bit. Yeah, that was good. That was back in the 90s when Greg was around, and then. When Greg was ill, that was a great thing what they did to be part of the Greg Spence benefit concerts that we did, which is one of the highlights of Big Beef Productions. Was that?
Tell
us about us.
That.
Yeah, tell us
more
about that.
Well, when
And say a little more about Greg too, just in case our listeners.
Greg Spence was a tremendous human being and a dear person, and who was extremely talented, was one of the best songwriters I've ever heard, and was from here, was from Fairborn, Dayton, and had been on the scene around. And he had briefly played with the Killjoys, which is where I kind of first met him with that show. He had already left the band, but he came to play. He played the intermission of that show, and he played with the band. That's where I first met Greg, at that Killjoys Canal Street gig that we did the video for. But Greg ended up, phenomenal guy, ended up living across the street from me.
Oh, wow.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Back in the 90s, which was where the Mulchman practiced. So that was kind of, when you talk about the heyday, we had a joke that was almost like a commune, because it was just like right there in like the Mulchman house. And so, and I was kind of back to the Big Beef thing. It was, not to overstate that, like the fourth member of the band, but, almost kind of, just like with the Killjoys and stuff. You get so involved with the bands that you're another working member, even though you might not be on the stage when they play.
You're behind the scenes and you're doing a lot. with
Yeah,
them.
and producing stuff, and going in the studio and literally producing stuff, which is another thing I always like to do, as opposed to the business. It's like even with the Mofo record.
Yeah.
I was involved in some of the production, and actually, and I like that. I don't want to just, here's a check and that looks like that can make us money. It's like, this looks like an interesting creative project to get involved with. I'll now manage business stuff so it can actually happen, but I'm involved in it happening and making it happen. It's not just a business investment. This is an interesting creative thing, and I want to be involved in it creatively. And that's probably been the core to whatever Big Beef is doing.
Yeah.
Is creatively. Because I remember we recorded in Dayton in the basement of Katie's house.
Yeah.
With Nick.
Yes.
And
that's right.
her
That lap steel guitar.
Yeah.
Yeah, Dennis.
And Ed, too.
Yeah.
Didn't Ed come in and play some
he did
organs?
stuff on there. Yeah.
And so that was just like, what's interesting, I've never done that, where I take this information, this recording from New York, bringing it to Dayton,
and then
adding
do other
to
things.
it.
Yeah.
Right. It's like, what? That's, usually do it in one place, the whole thing, and you're done. But
and now people are doing that.
Yeah, they're sharing
just
files.
Remote,
literally, But yeah, that was the first time I ever did something like that too.
But Greg Spence,
Yeah,
and I didn't know him well. I played in Real Lulu with him, so I knew him from that. When I was not Real Lulu,
I was going to
Sour
say, wait,
Belly.
you played Real Lulu? This is breaking news to us.
Sour Belly.
Yeah.
Real Lulu's
yeah.
on my mind. We keep talking about him, which is good. I love Real Lulu.
Yeah, great.
But Sour Belly is where I met Greg, and then he seemed to play with everyone.
Yeah, I was just going to say, he was so prolific.
Oh
played
my
with everybody.
gosh.
And so good natured about how he did it, and had so much talent, was so humble about it.
Oh, he was.
And that was going to be one of, it was 1999, and he had fallen ill. I mean, he was getting sick, and the cancer was back. He had it when he was a teenager.
Oh, okay.
Which they think is probably part of the radiation treatments and everything they did way back. So he was a person who was way wiser than his age, had that sort of, he was an old soul, and wasn't really in this world for long, but did a lot when he was here. But when he fell ill, we had just started working on what was going to be finally his own record, because he always worked with people, because part of it was he loved it, but it was also a little bit of him hiding.
Yeah.
I'm going to go do that, so it's not me. It's not my name, and I'm not out front. So he had, like so many of these brilliant people, like insecurities are like, you're one of the best songwriters I've ever heard. What are you worried about? But that's, history has shown there's a number of people like, I'm like, wait, well, that person's insecure. Their record's brilliant, you know. But yeah, and he finally we're going like, let's do it. And he started working on what was going to be his solo album, which was going to be a Big Beef record.
Oh, okay.
And in fact, it was going to be a dual release. And he finished one song that his soul knew, like, time's out, right? And he was obsessed with finishing this one song called She's Like Church, which is a staggeringly beautiful song, which I included in one of the It's All Happening shows.
Oh, cool.
But it's... and then he had the surgery, and then, you know, that was the end of it from there, because then it was just downhill. They went in like thinking, oh, this might be back. It was one of those where they open you up and they're like, yeah, just close you back up. There's not a lot we can do. Yeah,
How
that was
old
bad
was
news.
he?
32 when he was
32.
Yeah,
Jeez.
yeah, when he passed away. And but that last year, then he was sick, going through, you know, treatments, and he was barely getting out. And so we did things like we made an album, Cro-Mag, of just jam sessions, like our joke band, one of the band, the Lawn Jockeys, which was this sort of amalgamation of our friends who would just get together and, you know, play. And then we made a record that was one day, Nick was there, and you know, Ed and a whole bunch of people, that we made one copy of for Greg. Right?
Oh, wow.
You know, so it was like, here's this new album, and you get the copy. It was made a Cro-Mag for a Get Well present for him. But we did those benefit shows to help the family deal with all the costs and everything that was going on. And those were tremendously successful. And the energy and the outpouring of people from Dayton that came together to come to those, and we had one each week through the month of June, culminating in Guided by Voices at Bogart's, putting all the funds to Greg Spence.
Wow.
It was the very first show they ever played doing with Do the Claps. For that stuff, that album was just about on its way out, and that was their first sort of Do the Clap show.
Oh, wow. At Bogart's.
At Bogart's in June of 99. But we had those other shows at like 1470 and Canal Street and Jilly's, and all the bands that came to participate.
All the venues that are no longer there anymore.
Definitely.
So iconic.
Yeah, and then they were all, you know, opened their doors to us having these things, and they were all sold out. Everything was a sellout. Everything was packed. Everything was just filled with people there to, you know, and they were all videotaped, and the videos were given to Greg so he could see them, even though by then he was getting kind of ill to the point where it's hard to even take any of that in. But that's one of the most successful things.
I was just going to say, you had said that earlier, and that has to be something you're proud is hard to say because of the reason that happened, but
yeah, you know,
but something
pride is I always think of what Alexander Solzhenitsyn, the Russian author, once said about pride grows on the human heart like lard on a pig. And so I'm always a little wary of like, oh, I'm proud of that. It's like pride. It's like,
but you know what I'm saying.
I'm very sad. Yes, it is. It makes, I have nothing but positive thoughts, and, you know, because it was also it represents how we can do things and bring people together.
Right.
Yeah.
In all sorts of ways to do that. And that's a spirit that definitely could use as much cultivating right now.
Yeah. I think it's good for all times anywhere.
Yes,
Right.
exactly.
Yes.
But I think Dayton has really, you know, thanks to you and thanks to everybody else, Dayton has always rallied behind its own too, which I think is amazing. And we've talked about before, you know, being proud of coming from this area, but I really, you know, whether it's we're still a working class society in Dayton or what it is, but I think people tend to rally behind each other here and come together. And yeah, like you said, I think, you know, that isn't a time limited thing.
No.
That's something that It's
good
always
for
good.
everybody everywhere at all times.
Yeah, I have nothing but, I mean, there's something about this
Something in the water.
town. Yeah, it's wild.
Like
you
we
know?
said, it's probably the fluoride, but it's
Well, or there's that, there's that theory that I can't quite attest to this, but I remember years ago hearing about this plays a place that plays large in my youth when it comes to music. When you talk about music, was the Walden Hills Bar.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Because, some of the earliest shows.
And that became Tanks, right?
Yes,
Yep.
but it was originally the Walden Hills. And
Right,
it started
yeah,
in the
I know.
1970s, and I heard a story years ago, and whether it's true or not, I'm going with it because it's a great story.
That's what we're here for.
The Hills, the owner of the Hills, I guess he had been in North Carolina or something, and moved back here. But supposedly, the folk tale is moved back here to locate his new business. He was going to go to Dayton, Ohio, because there was this cosmic energy vortex that would go through the universe, and its polaric, transmission of energy bisected the planet Earth, and its connecting points, in and out points, Cairo, Egypt, and Dayton, Ohio.
Man, there you go.
and so we were like, well, that's. I mean, Edward Casey comes here to Dayton, and he's like, oh yeah, it's all cosmic here, and it's like, so something's going on, something's in the water. So we just went with it, and that's why one of Dennis's studio, his Bison Studios, where we recorded, we would record stuff there and we put it out. It was like Bison Studios, Cairo, Ohio.
Nice.
That's where the studio is located.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Whatever that is that you're talking about had to have some sort of influence on funk music, and it's
right. I mean, what's going
I don't
on
know,
here?
man.
Something's
Right.
going on,
Something
right?
crazy.
And that's in Walnut Hills happened to be where I first, because Ohio was an 18 state then, when I was 18. So we would go down there to see the live music, and I'm in high school, and
Where'd you go to high school again?
Carroll High School.
Carroll. Oh,
And so you'd be introduced to, the dates and the lovers and toxic reasons and all this stuff, at the Walnut Hills, and be like, you got to see your first, jam-packed bar with these bands doing all this, interesting stuff. And only later I would discover and I have some flyers from the shows. Later it was like, Rev Cool's like, yeah, I made that one. Yeah, I made that. That's and he's behind so much of this stuff. And I'm
I
like,
know.
yeah, we didn't, I didn't know.
You
this
guys
guy was-
work really close together now, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, the Rev,
Yeah.
I've known him for many years, and have been doing Around the Fringe, with him.
Well,
for
you
20 years.
take his place on occasion and do it with him, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
if he's out of town or something, you'll take his.
Yeah. It's a little less common now. One, because his schedule, he has less other things, so he doesn't need people to fill in. People as in me.
Yeah.
'Cause he used to do, it'd be more going on, right?
Yeah.
And stuff. Not so much now. And two, I'm busy doing my program, and I think he's sensitive to that.
And I think that's a good segue. Into,
Hang on, before we get to
sorry,
that segment,
I'm
I just
sorry.
want just one little anecdote.
Yeah.
I have a friend who lives in North Carolina, and we always trade barbs about flight and invention and stuff. And he was recently making, which is just North Carolina, you need to just let it go, okay?
Right. Yeah.
It happened here in Dayton.
Yeah.
Two, he was making a joke about being in Dayton, and he said something about, I don't even know what he was talking about. He said something about this being invented in Dayton, and probably oxygen too, because everything else came from Dayton. And I was like, well, I'm glad you're finally coming around to this idea
Well,
that
it
there's
has
this bubbling thing.
more inventions per capita.
Yeah,
than
yeah.
any other city
It is
in
cradle
North
of
America.
creativity.
It
Yeah,
is.
it
That's
just
what I
is.
mean. Cairo, Ohio.
Yeah,
I told
that's
you,
right.
that we have
All
our
right.
own pyramids here.
Now
All right.
segue.
So
Dan.
yeah, let's.
Well, let's get into
current endeavors.
let's talk about your radio show.
It's all happening.
It's kind of your, I mean, not that big. Is it under big? It's still
yeah.
under Big Beef, isn't
yeah.
it?
Oh,
Because
yeah,
you have that at
absolutely.
the bottom of it. Yeah. So this is your radio show. How long have you been doing the radio show?
Well, it's all happening.
Yeah,
I think what
it's
you're
all
talking-
happening.
It's all happening.
It's all happening,
It is.
baby.
It is. And that program, well, it's been going out live over the air for almost 2 years now.
Oh,
2
cool.
years?
Yeah, but it's
I didn't realize it had been that long.
yeah, but it had been in production obviously well longer than that to get all the pieces in place, and and the idea actually from it was first originated way back with Uncommon Sense when we were doing Uncommon Sense TV. Back in that time during the Bolshevik years and the Cheney-Bush regime, it was like 2007, and that was kind of winding down because Ed had to leave town for a job thing. He had moved away that year, and so and it's sort of, and I had always wanted to kind of move it into radio. I had always, wanted to do that kind of thing. And we were in that long fight with the future of WYSO during all of that too, like a 5-year fight with Keep WYSO Local, which 150%. If we didn't have won that fight, YSO wouldn't be there today. I have no doubt it would be gone, or just a feeder hub repeater sequence of something like that. If that, maybe that, but yeah, the station as we knew it, non-existent. So, and I always wanted to get into radio and or turn US TV into an audio thing at some point, just because of the production it takes, and streamline it and bring more music and stuff into it again. And then because of what was changing at YSO, I started getting involved in getting back into the station again with the Rev and doing, the live stuff. And it was like, so it was always there to do it. But then I got into politics and academic work for years, and it was always one of these days I'm going to get back into that. And one of these days I'm going to get back into music and culture again, but it was always one thing after another, and being involved in running political campaigns and everything. So finally, it reached a point where back in 2021, I was telling my partner, Kim, it's like I was helping with another campaign, but it's like after this one, I'm getting serious. I'm going to get back into this. And, you're getting older in life and everything. And the program is fundamentally, I see it as sort of a synthesis of everything that I've done, the entire history of Big Beef. And
that's
all
true,
of that
actually, when you think about it. That's true.
Yeah, it gets kind of all,
So
like
people
Dylan,
who
bringing it
don't-
all back home.
It does.
For people who don't know anything about it, what's your elevator pitch? Why should people turn in? What are you doing on this radio?
I'm trying. Well, what am I trying to do? Personally, for me, it's a way of staying sane. And I find that creative energy and imagination is the very thing that these forces of evil and cool, which are very much populating this country right now, authoritarianism and fascism have always, what's its greatest enemy is imagination.
And
It's
the
joy
art.
and art and all those things. The idea that somebody can imagine something that may not include you to be where you're at, whatever. And so hopefully using media, again, there's that cultural side to it, or that like creative side, to keep oneself sane, but to connect with others and to provide. It's a music-based program. It's a music show.
It is.
Right.
It is.
But it's also not.
Right.
Well, and
It's-
that's my question to you is listening to it and the curation of the music to a theme that you've put out there, that my mind just boggles at what it would take to
Oh
do
my
that.
gosh. I was
So-
just thinking that too.
Yeah.
Like, how long does this take to put one program together? Because there's so many, I call them samples, right?
Yeah,
Of,
segments.
yeah.
Just like,
and in the music alone, you have 15 songs per.
depending on how long the
Yeah.
song is. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
I
it's an
mean-
hour-long show.
And
so
like, how do you pick a song? Like, because there's bands I've never heard of that I actually got turned on to, like the Ruts, right? And I'm like, what? The Ruts? And they're like,
oh,
it's
yeah,
punk rock. It's just punk.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's an enjoyable thing. It takes a while, but they're made. Back to your elevator pitch real quick, and because that might slide into like what this is something I tell people is like, how like comedians always say, if you want to tell the truth, make them laugh, right? Mm-hmm. Well, I'm like, if you want to get radical analysis of the state of our world and what's going on in it and how it's affecting people, put a beat to it, as opposed to some dry half. And that's dry. It obviously has its place, but like a political talk show or something. It's just like, don't have Funkadelic and then slide Julian Assange in there, right? Or something. I'm just throwing that out there. But, with an analysis like, here's how the surveillance state works. It's like, wait, what? Right. And it's like a radio show for the TikTok world. It's like it does the scrolling for you.
It
does.
Do
you use that as a tagline? Because you might think about that.
That's a good tagline, actually.
Yeah.
Well, one person did say, a couple of the listener comments, which have stuck with me, was like, one person was like, well, this is the right show at the right time. I like that
that's
one.
Nice.
Yeah.
And another person said, this is as if like Democracy Now! Is a music show. And I'm like, it kind of is, right?
That's true.
It's including these things to get people, because I don't want people to listen to music as a distraction.
Right.
I want the music to serve as an elevation. And elevate the consciousness, and not to like, oh, the world's too big and dark and ugly, so let's give me something where I don't have to think about it.
Right.
Well, I would prefer people to think about what's really happening.
Well, I think that's but
magic. Not feel despair over it.
Right.
That's what I think the magic of the show is. Like I said, the curation behind a theme, bringing the music that fits that theme, or will take you to that next step in what you're trying to say. And to me, that's the magic of what It's All Happening does.
Well, I appreciate that. I mean, I'm glad there's somebody thinks there's magic to it. That's good.
I couldn't do it.
That's great.
What I was going to say, when I first listened to it, and this is months and months and months ago, I was like, wow, that is really well done. And it sounds great. Everything sounds good about it. And it's entertaining, but informational, big time. And the music is just a cherry on top for me. It's like, oh, cool. Like you said, it's a radio show or, radio program in a way, playing music. But there's so much more information in there than just that. And you put it out in such an interesting way because you're sampling the voices or this dialogue, whatever that is, and placing it in, then you're talking also. And your voice sounds great. It's like just this mellow, like, hey, it's like, whoa, Andy.
Well, I'm glad. My least favorite part of the program is having to put myself in it.
Your voice sounds great on it.
Does.
It does. It fits really well.
Okay, well, that's good to hear.
It does.
I feel awkward about it, but it's like, if that's good. But
we listen back to our own episodes, and believe me,
we're like, I can't listen to any more of this.
Right.
1 minute.
We get it.
But I know I have to put that in there because you have to have that.
Yes, you do.
Because it is a radio program.
Right, it's a show.
And it is something that it is getting out there.
It's a radio show for the TikTok world.
It is.
Yeah, I love that.
But it's
great.
like when you mentioned like your podcast, I was like, it's not a podcast.
Right.
But
My
it had
fault.
me, but I had me thinking like, well, I guess by certain definitions it is, but it's not, because radio shows are for live. Well, that's kind of what it's designed for, to be heard over the radio. That's what the perfect thing to me is like for somebody to turn their dial on, to have it come on the radio somewhere, and they're, in Alaska or wherever they're listening, because there's stations up there. Right?
Yeah.
To somebody just come along it and like, oh, here's a song, or like, oh, that's kind of a cool song, and then all of a sudden, there's like, wait, what? What was that just said? wait, what? And like, I can't believe I heard that on the radio because that's actually true. Somebody said something true. I mean,
then it goes to a cool song again, right? And you're like,
but
I'm going to stay
you
here.
leave them not sure what they just heard.
Right. Yeah.
Confused, because confusion is always the first step to wisdom. And so you've got that state where like, wait, this is not normal. Something's operating off. Something's coloring outside the lines. And in a safe way or whatever, but it's doing that. And that's what we need. This society needs people to go, oh, it's okay to stop imagining the way things are the way they are, because that's the way they are. It's like, well, they're that way until we choose to change them.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, and so just the visceral level of the structure of the program, I hope, gets people to go, oh, radio, oh, you can do things differently.
Yeah.
It doesn't
That's
have to
what's
be
cool
this.
about
Yeah,
it.
it's really cool. How are you finding it difficult to find radio stations that will bring you on, or is
Tell
has
us,
it been-
because you have radio stations already playing it across the United States.
And that's done through a series of, back to the distribution thing,
Oh, really?
contacting stations and going, hey, and, like you're trying to get your band on the air.
Right.
It's you're trying to get your thing on the air. And
So how are you picking the stations originally? Like just small, looking through a
huge
or-
list put together that my friend Amy Pickard, who was originally part of the MVCC crew way back and part of my whole TV experience. Anyway, she lives out in LA. I had paid her to
get a
help,
list?
help. She does some of this kind of stuff professionally, and she helped put a list together with all this contact information. And she started to do some of that reach out, which was great. The It's All Happening Global Ambassador. But then she had situation with jobs in life, and it's like, I don't have time to do this right now. But I've just kept up with it.
That's
So you've just
amazing.
call a station and say, I have.
Oh, or like you come across, I don't have that much time to just call
Right.
everybody.
Right.
There's not that many, so, but, you come across something like, oh, that looks like that could be worth contacting because they're doing this, right? Or occasionally, my favorite thing, and this has happened a couple of times, I find out stations are airing it. They're just picking
really?
it up off of PRX, Public Radio Exchange, or
That's
something,
amazing.
or Audio Port, and it was like, there's a pretty powerful station up in New Hampshire and Vermont. I just discovered
That's
is
crazy.
airing it twice a week.
That is amazing.
And it's
Wow.
like somebody up there comes across it and like, this looks good. We'll add this to our schedule.
That's
And now with all the cuts with NPR and the problems there, it's like the fact that the program is free to
That's
them.
true.
Right.
It's like, oh, maybe I'll look
Get on
into
board
that.
with this.
Yeah,
Do you know how many affiliates are airing your program?
At least a dozen stations,
nice.
15, 16,
Yeah.
17 maybe. There's one, WFHB out of Bloomington, which is a great one. They also broadcast in Nashville.
Oh, really?
So-
Bloomington, Indiana?
Yeah.
The college
Yes,
town, yeah.
it's a great station there. So they have it, but, it's overnight, but still.
Yeah.
So the
Hey,
Nashville
college
one.
kids are up.
And then, I know. And then there's the Nashville stations like 3 a.m, but it's like, hey, somebody in Nashville is
Oh,
up
yeah.
at 3
Right.
a.m, and somebody's like, what the?
But then they can go to your website and
Yeah.
you can listen to
It's all there.
Yeah.
At bigbeef.com.
Awesome.
It's still there,
Nice.
which is where like you talk about the that whole thing with what It's All Happening has done, got me to revitalize the website, reinvent that, because that had been left like a like a dead Soviet satellite just going around and around Venus, like lost in a dead orbit. Just you'd go to the old Big Beef
You're
site
like,
for years, and it was like, this hasn't been updated in 19 years. And it
Oh,
was like,
geez.
so that was all reinvented as a platform because I knew this was going to be it. And it's big, and that's one reason I put some of that history on there, so people
amazing.
could go to
it's
this
great.
new show
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
so good.
and go, hey, what's this what's this music?
Yeah.
What's this? Or links to this Big Beef YouTube page, and it's
That's
got
awesome.
all that stuff.
Tons.
What's cool is you're still
Tons of
doing
cool
DIY.
Yeah.
Even at this
Yeah,
age,
yeah.
and you're not old.
But you're
I'm not saying
45,
that.
right?
But it's like you're still doing it the way you've always done it, by calling up, getting it's just cool. And you did that with your label, the record label.
Yeah, well, that's what. Yeah, it is a DIY thing.
It is,
and it is. I do feel again that it's all happening. Really is the amalgamation of everything that's been done in the past, and like I had once described when I was first doing it. Was like a common. It was like bringing together the old groovy Cosmic Love Hour, and then all that big beef music stuff with the Eat More Carb show, with Uncommon Sense, and all that political content, and a little bit of Harry Shearer's Le Show, which was an early progenitor for getting the idea of like, oh, you can structure shows differently like this, but it is literally bringing it all back home.
It is.
That's awesome, man.
Thank you, Andy.
Yeah.
It's been
Andy.
a pleasure having you on.
It's
been a great discussion.
It has.
You've not only done some stuff, super cool stuff musically in Dayton, and bands have.
There's so much more we can.
Well,
dive
the
in.
website, go to Big Beef. What is the website?
It's just bigbeef.com.
Okay, bigbeef.com.
It's a simple
Everything's on there.
Yes. You go
Everything.
there and you
Go
can,
there and you can do it
find
all.
out a little bit, it's bits and pieces of the history of the music, the different bands that it worked with
Yeah.
are
Some of the old
listed.
flyers are on there.
Oh,
Yeah, the
yes,
flyers.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Stuff about the cable TV shows we did,
Yes.
the Groovy Cosmic Love
I've watched
Hour,
some of those too. Yeah,
those things.
But thank you for coming on. It's been a
Yeah.
pleasure.
Thank you guys for doing what
thanks,
you do
Andy.
and for
Thanks.
helping fly the flag of Dayton,
Thank you,
buddy.
man.
Cairo, Ohio.
Thanks, Andy.
The Cosmic Energy.
We're out from Cairo.